Welcome to another edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy. It's NFL Conference Championship Sunday edition of the show. Ian Cameron, and we are joined by Philip Nelson once again to talk NFL Conference Championship Sunday, the AFC title game, New England, Denver, the NFC title game, the Rams and the Seahawks, the trilogy, the rubber match, if you will, because the teams split the regular season meetings between those division rivals. So two intriguing games coming up on Sunday. We are doing multiple Football Frenzy shows this week to preview these two games. We already got one recorded yesterday with my good pals in the CFL, both of them starting quarterbacks, of course, Davis Alexander and Trevor Harris. Both of them in the Grey Cup this past year, of course, facing off against one another as well. So we got their thoughts on the NFL Conference Championship games on Sunday. And now we're back here with Philip to talk about these games. So basically, I've already said my thoughts on what we saw in divisional playoff weekend. Just to quickly reiterate, Buffalo-Denver was a crazy good game. Back and forth, went to overtime. Lots of controversy. Was it a catch by Brandon Cooks, or was it an interception as it was ruled for Jaquan McMillan of the Denver Broncos? Obviously, that's a controversy that's going to go on over the years because a lot of people, because look, if that's ruled a catch, Buffalo's in position to win the game with a field goal. And of course, with that ruled an interception, it allowed Denver to come back and be able to win the game in overtime. But it was a great football game. Philip and I were all over mentioning that over last week on the show in the Buffalo-Denver game. We both felt that total was too low, and it proved to be that way. A high-scoring affair. In fact, the first three games of divisional playoff weekend were favored and over, cashing in all three. It happened with the 49ers and Seahawks. Great coaching job by Kyle Shanahan, but just ran out of bodies. The injuries mounted. You could see it. Christian McCaffrey, Jake Tonjes on the sideline as that game went on, banged up, trying to get back into the game. They just, the injuries eventually caught up to them. And the one thing you can't do when you're undermanned and you're facing a great team like Seattle, you can't give up an opening kickoff touchdown to start the game. And it kind of set the 49ers back right from the beginning. But Seattle's defense, dominant, did a great job on Brock Purdy, shutting down that offense again for the second time in 3 weeks. What a defense the Seahawks have, loaded at all three positions, and they showed it once again. Houston Texans, we talked about it with our quarterbacks yesterday, Trevor and Davis, about C.J. Stroud. What's wrong with him? How do we fix C.J. Stroud? Because this was not a good playoff for him. Even in the Pittsburgh game, he didn't play great, made a couple mistakes, errant throws, interceptions, bad decisions, and saw more of the same against New England. Just shit you can't do. Once in a while, you got to eat the sack or throw the ball out of bounds. That's the way. That's the play when you're facing, a good defensive front like New England showed on last Sunday. And unfortunately, too many times he was trying to force it, trying to get a completion when he was under incredible duress, and he paid the price for it multiple times in that game. And all you have to do with a great defense like that really played well against May and the Patriots offense is just don't make mistakes. And guess what happened? C.J. Stroud made mistakes. And unfortunately, kind of eroded a good defensive effort from the Texans. Texans defense played well enough to win that game, but you just can't turn it over the way C.J. Stroud did. And New England advances with that win against Houston. And then in the late game, Rams and Bears, it was a great game, frigid. Disappointing we didn't have as many points, but I was fearful of the weather, maybe leading to maybe a little bit of a suppressed scoring type of game. That's what we saw. The Rams got it done, found a way, even despite another attempted Houdini act and more heroics from Caleb Williams. What an incredible throw to Cole Kmet back of the end zone to force overtime. But the Rams found a way. They gutted it out on the road, tough conditions. Matt Stafford and all the detractors saying how he struggles in the cold, and all he did was find a way and got the job done. And I asked the quarterbacks yesterday this question, and I'll ask this to Phil as he's about to give his thoughts on the divisional games. How freaking good was that throw from Matthew Stafford to Davante Adams in overtime when they on that drive that won the game for them? I mean, he put that football into a thimble. You talk about a tight window. That was tighter than a duck's ass, that window. And he somehow found Davante Adams on it. But that was a great game. Philip, I'll throw it to you. Your thoughts on divisional playoff weekend and what we saw.
Yeah, I'll go in order like how you did. Bills Broncos, what a game! But comes down to you can't expect to win a playoff game with 5 turnovers. That's just that's standard. And the fact that they even stuck in that game The Bills were the better team. I think that was pretty obvious.
And the gift wrap 3 points at the end of the first half with Josh's fumble, trying to run
that
with
fumble, what, 3 turnovers or 2 turnovers in a matter of 3 plays. I mean, just not good. And your star quarterback can't, he's supposed to be erasing mistakes. And I get it. We obviously have all the news now of the McDermott firing and the Bean promotion. That kind of blows my mind a little bit here because I think that this roster isn't a Super Bowl roster. Let's just face it. It's not. This defense isn't what it used to be. And they proved that all year long. Josh Allen doesn't really have the weapons, but he has been able to, go on the road into Jacksonville and win and keep them in this game. Even because, besides the turnovers, obviously turnovers are everything, but 25 of 39, 283, 3 touchdowns. You eliminate some of those mistakes, just maybe 1 or 2 of them. And we have a different storyline here, but
the ball on Denver's defense all game. What stopped them? Turnovers.
Well, exactly. So, I thought that was a very, very interesting game. Obviously, that catch we're going to be talking about forever here. I get it. I get it both ways, but I think it's funny because this is almost like the one situation where it's like, okay, if you have the ball in your possession and you fall and hit the ground and you have to maintain possession through the ground, I guess if the other guy just happens to rip it out of you before it's considered down or a football move or whatever that ends the play officially.
So they ruled that on the initial look, it looked like he was down, he had it, and then it was ripped from him.
Yeah.
But apparently they say that the ball was still moving around in Brandon Cook's hands when he was on the ground and had it ripped from him.
I'd have to look at it a little bit closer because I didn't think so. I thought that I thought he had it, he hit the ground, and my initial thought was play's over, but it's funny because I guess that's not necessarily true because he could have the ball. Like, let's say that the McMillan isn't there and you have the ball and you're bringing it down to the ground. You could technically hit and have possession, but once you hit, if the ball pops out, it's not a catch. So kind of agree with that. I kind of understand that. So, for the most part, I guess they got it right. But here's the thing now. You can't blame Josh Allen for that. And, you can blame him for a lot of things. But I think that that one there, wasn't necessarily his, nothing to do with him. And, yeah, if he catches that ball, it's a whole different ball game there that we're having a different conversation here today. So, there's that. Bills, Broncos, unfortunate about obviously Nick. So we'll see what happens moving forward there. 49ers, Seahawks. Just Seahawks, clearly a better team. Defense just absolutely bottled, Purdy and McCaffrey. McCaffrey 35 rushing yards on 11 attempts. No chance there if they can't even run the ball, get anything going. 49ers, great season. They were decimated. The fact that they made it this far is pretty good. But yeah, Seahawks just had that one in control the entire time. Dominant defensive performance, opening kickoff, boom. Obviously that was a statement to start that game. Texans, Patriots, Stroud, man, you know what? The one observation I had from him is just he seemed off the whole. He was off the entire game, but body language, just all the things. It's a playoff game. You're playing for the AFC Championship game, and it's just from play one when he threw that ball into the dirt, I was like, oh boy, here we go. And he just looked so discombobulated, just even in that throwing motion, and then just his decision making and holding on to the ball, all of that stuff. Just an absolutely brutal performance on his end, and that's 2 games in a row. So I think the Texans have a really interesting decision to make on his 5th-year option here. Because I don't know what's going on here with him, but obviously not having Nico Collins, was obviously something there. But regardless, that doesn't absolve all of his just decisions from the pocket. In terms of holding on to the ball, taking sacks, the fumbles, the interceptions, all of it.
And even Trevor was on the show with them yesterday. They said it. Even the gimme throws, throws, the easy ones he was missing, and throwing behind receivers, throwing it into the turf. Just inaccuracies all over the place from him.
Exactly. And so, I think the weather really must have gotten his head. Drake May, 3 touchdowns. He had a pick. He just did enough. I mean, obviously those weather conditions were kind of, they played a factor in all this. But you know what? The Patriots, they just were clearly the team that was ready to come out and
It was a grind for May, but the 2 throws on touchdowns, the zip throw on 4th down to Demario Douglas, he just
yep,
zinged that right in there. It was a great throw.
yep,
And then obviously the throw, great precision to throw it, and a great catch by Kayshon Boutte there in the 4th quarter
yep,
to really give Patriots some separation. So even though
yep,
the Drake May had some mistakes too, he also made some big-time plays, big-time throws that really gave the Patriots that great chance to win that football
yep.
game.
Exactly. And last one there, Rams Bears, obviously another great game. I really think that I think once the Bears score there, I think they go for 2. I think that was probably the right decision. And I get it both ways because it's 16-17. You're on your home field. The conditions are freezing, but in that situation, just who Ben Johnson is, whenever you that was a gift from God. That Caleb
Like,
Williams
go for 2 and go for the win right there. Don't tempt
I
fate.
mean,
He didn't love
that,
his short yardage execution. That's what it was. That's what caused him to kick the extra point. Said, I don't
yeah,
trust my 2-point conversion playbook right now. My offense in short yardage has been a mess in this entire game, and it was.
yeah,
Let's be a little bit fair to Ben Johnson. I know he's getting raked over the coals. Why didn't you go for 2? You had all the momentum
yeah,
after that miracle play, but his short yardage offense was putrid in that football game.
yeah. It
So I
was,
get it
it was,
from
and
that
I guess
standpoint,
that's
the
where with
hesitation.
the 2 point. You would think though that Ben Johnson could draw up something for a 2 point play that would get them here. And I think the tiebreaker, because I could see it both ways, man. I really can. But the tiebreaker for me anyway is the fact that the Rams are a team that's been there. They have all these veterans, Matthew Stafford, Puka. I just felt like the Rams were a better team. So if you're in that situation with the Bears, it's almost kind of like you're playing with house money. Let's freaking go win this damn thing on our home field and whatever. But I get it. I get both ways. And you know what? The Bears had an opportunity also in, obviously overtime. I think that I think the throw by Caleb, that interception was a little bit off, but I do think that DJ Moore should have cut under. And I just felt like it didn't, the clear out route. I think it was a Dunze running the clear out route. And it's funny because like just me breaking down that play, he needs to get his ass going to get the safety up out of the picture. He wasn't running hard. And I think that, and I've worked this with Mike Martz a million times and Torrey Holt and all these guys who coached us. The clear out guy is just as important as the guy catching the damn ball. And, I think if a Dunze runs hard and gets that safety up out of there, DJ Moore, it clears up the picture for Caleb. But because he didn't do that and the safety was able to kind of play them both, Caleb Williams wasn't wrong in saying, okay, I got to flatten you out and I'm going to throw you away from him. But then DJ Moore goes up and then it allows him to go make that interception. And one thing that receivers are always told is to protect the ball, protect the throw and go get the ball. But, so I don't put that on Caleb Williams at all, actually. I think that was just lack of execution by his receivers there and a little bit of communication. But for the most part, like you said, that throw, Matthew Stafford, once again, ice in his veins. Going to be really, really interesting to see him go up against that Seahawks defense. But yeah, that Stafford to Devontae throw just reminded me of some of the crazy ass throws from Rodgers to Devontae. So it was fitting. And but what a weekend though. What another great weekend of football.
Yeah, win some, lose some weekend. Cashed with Buffalo, Denver over, which was my best bet of the weekend. So that was great to see that. I ended up keeping the Ram Bears game. The Rams Bears over was going to be like best bet 1B for me.
Yeah.
But because of the weather, I kept it a little. It was still a decent bet, but like I said, I kept it a little smaller just because of the weather, and because of that, made more money with Buffalo, Denver over than losing with the Rams Bears over. And then we had a bunch of smaller bets and a very small 49ers bet. Bad call there. Obviously Seattle rolled them, but I did have Houston team total under, and I had New England -3 split bet against the Texans. So we're able to cash both of those. Of course, we haven't even talked about the shocking news, and it's a great segue into the AFC Championship game. Bo Nix, we didn't even know he was hurt when that game-winning field goal by Will Lutz was kicked to beat Buffalo. We just assumed, hey, everything's fine. Bo Nix and the Broncos onto the AFC Championship game, but he broke a bone in that ankle just a play or two right before the game-winning field goal kick in overtime. And we didn't know anything about it till after the game when all of a sudden Adam Schefter, and some people were thinking it was a fake Adam Schefter account because they couldn't fucking believe what they were seeing and what they were hearing, that Bo Nix is out for the rest of the playoffs with a broken bone injury. But sure enough, it was legit. It was accurate. Sean Payton in his press conference not long after that confirmed it. Bo Nix done for the playoffs. And Jarrett Stidham, Auburn Tiger in his college days, former New England Patriot, former Raider. He was there for a bit as well. Now with the Denver Broncos, will be tasked with trying to keep Denver's Super Bowl hopes alive. And because of the quarterback injury to Bo Nix, we have ourselves, as you can see on the screen, a much different point spread for this AFC Championship game than we would otherwise have. New England 5-point road favorites in Denver, 41.5 the total here in this game. This is the largest home underdog that a number one seed has been in the conference championship round since 1970, 56 years ago. So that pretty much tells you all you need to know right now of where this is right now as far as the point spread. Actually, I should note that it's 5 points. It's actually up to 42, the total. It has ticked up a little bit, so I'll just adjust that on the screen. 42 is what we're looking at here with the total for Patriots and Broncos. Lots to dissect here. We'll start with the Denver offense. Jarrett Stidham hasn't, I believe, played a regular season game in a couple of years. At least that's what I think I read. It's been a couple of years since he's been.
2022.
Yes, there you go. 4 years. Wow. So it's been longer than I expected. Now, I have seen Jarrett Stidham play for the Denver Broncos in August in the preseason a bunch of times. And normally I don't like bringing up preseason, but I have to in this instance because, as you know, Philip, I do make a case to bet NFL preseason football. Some people don't, but I think there's legitimate opportunities. Positive expectation wagers can be made in the preseason based on depth charts, quarterback rotations, if someone's got a stronger quarterback rotation over the opponent. So there are reasons, to want to make a wager in a preseason game. And often with the Denver Broncos these last couple of years, we've seen Jarrett Stidham play a lot in the second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter of these games. And every time I've seen Stidham play in the preseason, the last couple of years here since he's been with Denver, he's lit it up. He's looked good. The offense has looked really good. He's looked comfortable in the offense. He's looked comfortable in the playbook. And the Broncos, and he's led this team to putting up points. And not just some points, a lot of points.
14 of 15 for, 16 of 23 for 240, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions versus the Cardinals. So Very impressive there. And then versus the 49ers, 14 of 15, 136, 2 touchdowns, no picks.
He was excellent. And I remember those games because I watched them, and he was excellent. He looked like a guy that said, you know what? If ever something were to happen to Bo Nix, there's a possibility he could come in there and be decent and be serviceable and be sound and be solid for this Denver Broncos team. It also helps that he's been in this system now with Sean Payton for both years that Sean Payton's been the head coach, so he knows the playbook inside and out. You're not having to teach it on the fly, and that's a benefit here to Jarrett Stidham going into this start against the Broncos. But let's not kid ourselves. Preseason's one thing. AFC Championship game in the playoffs against a team that we just saw their defensive front just absolutely fucking tee off the last couple of weeks on the Chargers and the Texans with pressure and getting at the quarterback. How will first of all, Denver's got to block well and protect Stidham well. That's imperative because the one thing we know is that let's see how Stidham performs if he's under the significant pressure that we saw from that New England defensive front in that game. But if they can even keep him relatively clean, they're going to be able to make some plays. I think he can throw the ball well. Like I said, he's been in this offense. He can run a little bit. I don't think he's the runner that Bo Nix is, but then again, we don't expect him to be. But he's not a complete Eli Manning type statue in the pocket, Jarrett Stidham. he can move around a little bit when he has to. So he's got some degree of mobility, which obviously he may need to use here against this New England defensive front. They're going to have to be able to run the football, the Denver Broncos here in this game. And they showed at times last week against Buffalo with R.J. Harvey that they could move the football. No question about that. But still, it's a run game that's been hit or miss throughout the course of the season. But the pass rush, and now with Christian Gonzalez, who had a whale of a game for New England against Houston, and that secondary, that's going to be the key here. Is this receiving core for the Denver Broncos, led by, of course, Courtland Sutton. Can they gain separation? That's another issue that both teams had against New England, Phil. Houston and the Chargers. The receivers weren't getting open very often down the field against the Patriots secondary. So that's going to fall on Courtland Sutton. That's going to fall on the rest of this Denver receiving core, which is banged up, by the way. I should point that out. Pat Bryant and Troy Franklin both got hurt last week against the Buffalo Bills. Will they be good to go for this game? That's something to monitor. I think there's a pathway for Denver to have some offensive success, but again, it's contingent upon that pass protection holding up. And then on the flip side, Phil, we talked about it last week. We were onto it. It's just not a great Denver Broncos defense. It's just not. I mean, when they play someone halfway decent, any offense with a pulse, we see what happens. You can shut down the Geno Smiths of the world and the Raiders. You can shut down, obviously, the Chargers and Chris Oladokun of the Chiefs on Christmas night when they've already been knocked out of the playoffs. But their last 3 games against playoff teams, playoff quarterbacks, playoff offenses, Green Bay, your Packers, they gave up 26 points in Denver, and that was and the only reason the Green Bay's offense sputtered in the second half was they lost Christian Watson, they lost Zach Tom along the offensive line, and the offense started to sputter after that. But up until those injuries, Green Bay was moving the ball up and down in Denver against that Broncos defense. We saw Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, couldn't be stopped. Almost 300 passing yards for Lawrence, 34 points. They go into Denver, they beat the Broncos 34-26. And last week, turnovers stopped the Bills, not the Broncos defense. Turnovers stopped the Bills. Bills put up 30 points. They moved the ball every single drive, it felt like, with Josh Allen. It was only the turnovers that got them in trouble. And they still put up 30 points, even though Denver escaped with the win. So when they face any sort of offense that's even halfway decent to good, this Denver defense is just not getting stops, not getting the job done. And I think they'll struggle here because I consider Drake May, and this Patriots offense improving. We saw James Cook run the ball with success last week against Denver's run defense, which was a concern going into it. And that is probably a problem and a worry here for me as well when you have to deal with the tandem of Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson. How are you going to deal with those two guys? I have concerns about that for the Broncos. And if they can run the football, it just opens everything up then for the Patriots. Hunter Henry over the middle. And again, not a great team defending tight ends either, the Denver Broncos. And of course, the receivers, Demario Douglas, Steph Diggs, and Kayshon Boutte, who I think now he's got all the talent in the world. Patriots said it's been an up and down season. He struggled with confidence. No better way to get your confidence back than that big time catch he made against Houston. You watch this game. I think Kayshon Boutte is going to make an impact here for the Patriots in the passing game. But I'm on over 42. I agree with this total starting to tick up. We were on over last week with Denver in that game against Buffalo. This is a much lower total than it would have been otherwise because of the Jarrett Stidham situation, him replacing Bo Nix. But I think they can do enough on offense. They got Peyton's offensive game plan to lean back on, right? Guy that can scheme something up to work, you hope, even against a very good New England defense. And Stidham's a veteran now. He's been around the block. And then on the flip side, you've got a New England offense that I think is going to have success here. Because I actually think for the Patriots offense, Phil, could make an argument this might be a step down in defensive class for them, comparing Denver to the Houston Texans and comparing Denver to the LA Chargers defenses. I don't think the Bronco defense is as good as those two on that side of the football. So I think this total's light, all things considered. It's going to be another great weather day in Denver on Sunday. I'm seeing no precipitation, light wind, 40-degree Fahrenheit temperatures, perfect for January football outdoors, just like the weather was perfect in Denver for that Bills-Broncos game last weekend. So give me over 42. Side is tough, right? I find there's not a great deal of value now. You're laying 5 on the road with New England, and as good as they've played the first 2 games, now they got to do it on the road in a loud environment. And the value is with the Broncos. Do you trust Stidham and company enough to take them? But there's value considering it's, like I said, since 1970, this is the largest price for a home underdog in as a number one seed in conference championship history since 1970, the last 46 years. So I lean Denver, but by far the superior bet for me in this game is taking this over right now at 42. Phil, what do you think? AFC Championship, Patriots, Broncos.
I'm on board. I think that I think given the fact that I agree with what you're saying in terms of the Texans defense being better, I think, than the Broncos defense. So with that being said, I think that the Patriots are going to be able to move the ball. Booty, gosh, I mean, that catch was on Derek Stingley Jr. on top of it. So, I think that guy is really starting to get some confidence there. Some of
By the way,
throws,
that's a hint on my part that I like Booty props here. Receptions, receiving yards, maybe even a touchdown prop. I think I saw it at plus 260. I think it's worth it. I think he could be involved here.
Yeah, and then Diggs. So for the most part, I really do think that the Patriots are going to have the weapons necessary to neutralize. Again, you're right with the Broncos. Statistically speaking, earlier in the year, did they do really well against some shitty teams? Yeah. But what we've been seeing once they play against somebody with a pulse, as you said, is not the same story here. So with that being said, I think the Patriots offense has enough weapons to be able to move this football. Now, with that being said, the Broncos, though, they do have the number one ranked offensive line. So I do think that they're going to be able to at least keep Jarrett Stidham upright. It's not going to be, the Patriots have been getting after the quarterback lately, but I think the Broncos are going to be an offensive line that's going to help out Stidham here. I think Sean Payton's kind of an asshole, but sometimes you have to be an asshole to be great at what you do. I think he's going to come
up with a football coach. He's just kind of a prick.
Exactly. Yeah. If I had a nickel every time I met a coach who's a prick. But yeah, I think that they're going to be able to keep Stidham upright. I think that Sean Payton's going to have a good plan to make sure that he's not asking too much of him, but just enough to keep them in the game. But I agree with you. I think this goes over because I think that Stidham will be able to have his moments where they do score and strike. But I just don't think they're going to have enough power to keep up with the Patriots, really. So the -5, +5, that's a little bit tougher. But I see this kind of being somewhere around like a 28-18-ish type of a game. I think the Patriots will get into the high 20s. So with that being said, I feel pretty good about an over here. And more so, I would say like a Patriots team total over would be a really good one too, because you just don't know what you're going to get from the Broncos with Stidham. So.
Yeah, the Patriots, by the way, you're right. And obviously, even though they lost, it came in a loss last week, Buffalo. And that's the one thing I regret. I said I shouldn't have trusted the Bills' defense fully. And the Bills' defense clearly had their issues last week because I was debating, do I take Buffalo +1.5 or do I just take Buffalo team total over? I should have went with Buffalo team total over, cashed. Even though they lost that game 33-30, but I went with the +1.5 instead. But yeah, the New England team total, just to reiterate what Phil's liking here, 23.5 is the number right now with the New England Patriots team total. And again, I'll reiterate for the Denver Broncos defense, they gave up 7 and 17 to Las Vegas. They gave up 13 to Chris Oladokun, 3 to the Chargers when Trey Lance started at the end of the regular season instead of Herbert. But again, against playoff offenses, 26 allowed to Green Bay, 34 allowed to Jacksonville, 30 allowed to Buffalo, all at home as well. Those were all home games too for the Denver Broncos. So that team total, I think it could get there. I think it could get there for this New England Patriots team. Plus, they could get a defensive score. We certainly saw them get a defensive score last week against the Houston Texans against C.J. Stroud. And that's another thing that helps the over. Like, could you see a defensive score happening? And Drake May, he has turned it over a few times in the first 2 playoff games at home, despite the wins against Houston and the Chargers. He still turned it over a few times. That could set up Denver with a short field. Don't even rule out the Broncos defense maybe getting more.
And that's the thing too with the Broncos. I will say, they've during the season they've given up points, but it's not to say that they don't have extremely talented DBs that can step up and make one play like that. So I
They did
agree with
force
you
a
there.
gaggle of them last week against Buffalo, of course, that being
Exactly.
turnovers.
So,
Yeah.
I think that, gosh, man, what they're coaching nowadays in the NFL in terms of punching the ball out, get one guy to wrap them up and then come and maul them and punch the ball out. I mean,
Pack mentality and just rip that football out.
yeah, I mean,
You
they're
can't
getting
do
so
that.
good at punching that thing. Granted, Josh Allen, geez, that first fumble looked like he was just fucking throwing it backwards for some reason. But that's what happens when you start running with the ball like this, and that's why, man, I hate it when quarterbacks do that. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen around you. So,
Yeah, it can be a risk, and Josh Allen found that out last weekend. All right, this game, there's a lot of people saying this is the Super Bowl right here because they feel these are the two best teams of the four left standing. That's the decent argument to make for sure, but obviously we've seen these teams split the regular season meetings. Both were close, both were down to the wire. The last game was absolutely epic, 38-37 on a Thursday night in Seattle late in the season. And now the rubber match to decide who wins the NFC championship and who goes to the Super Bowl between these NFC West rivals, the Los Angeles Rams and the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle minus 2.5 point home favorites, 47.5 the total in this game. So we had one real low scoring game and we had one epic shootout the last time, 75 points in that 38-37. So what's going to happen here? And this total being at 47.5 in this game. We'll start with the Rams offense. It's going to have its challenges here. No question about that. This is an elite Seattle Seahawks defense. This is a Rams offense that I think has the capability of being as good as it gets. I think they were impacted a little bit by the cold. You can't help but not be impacted by it a little bit if you're the Rams. You played most of your game. You played all your home games indoors. You've played certainly a good chunk of your road games as well in warmer conditions, much warmer than what you saw last Sunday night in Chicago, and probably bothered by it a little bit. But and who knows, the hand in the finger where he banged it off the helmet of a Carolina player the week before, maybe that impacted him a little bit too at times last week. But when you look at it, it's going to be good weather in Seattle. I mean, they're going to go to Seattle, Lumen Field, Phil, on Sunday night, and they're going to look at 42 degrees Fahrenheit, no rain, and very light wind is like tropical conditions, quite honestly, in Seattle compared to what they experienced at Soldier Field last Sunday. So for Seattle, that's another week in Seattle where the weather couldn't be better. No rain, 2-mile-per-hour winds, 42 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, that's fantastic. And Seattle can be dicey, especially at this time of year, as far as weather is concerned. So back-to-back weeks where the weather's great in Seattle for some playoff football. They're number 2 in pressure rate, Seattle's defense, and that is certainly that's when we see Matthew Stafford impacted. If you have zero pass rush, you have problems. If you get a pass rush against him, that's when you can rattle him a bit, throw him off his spot. Inaccurate throws start to creep in, and we even saw Chicago's defense get some pressure on him. And that's what's worrying me, Philip, about this game for the Rams. Chicago's a terrible pass rush team, like bottom of the league or near it in quarterback pressure rate for all season pretty much. And here's the Bears sacking him multiple times last week. If Chicago's starting to do that to Matt Stafford, what the hell is Seattle capable of? Here in this game on Sunday night against Matt Stafford and this team with their pass rush, which is leaps and bounds better, obviously, than Chicago's. He's supposed to have a very good offensive line, the Rams, but maybe the cold bothered them a little bit. But to see them give up the pressure they did against a Chicago team that's not good at getting pressure, that's a little alarming to me. Got to be fair. Got to admit, that's a little concerning to me going into this matchup. So that's key, right? Get home against Stafford. And you should have success. I don't know if Williams and Corum are going to have a lot of success running the football against Seattle. We know they can absolutely shut down and clamp down against the run, and you certainly saw it on full display last week in the game against San Francisco. There just wasn't a whole lot of room to maneuver. 3.8 yards per carry. They have the number 1 yards per carry run defense in the NFL, Seattle. They're just allowing 3.8 yards per carry, which is just exceptional, numbers on a yards per rush basis. So That's going to be the thing. I think it's going to be it's going to be in the hands of Stafford pretty much this game. And can he make plays to Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Colby Parkinson, and the rest of this receiving core? And will this offensive line pass protect well enough against a number 2 ranked pressure rate team in the NFL, Seattle, to let those routes develop and open up down the field? That's the key. On the flip side, Seattle's offense. Now, no Charbonnet. Our glass of Charbonnet is out for this game. He won't play Zach Charbonnet, so obviously Kenneth Walker is going to get 98% of the target the carries here in this game. It'll predominantly become his backfield as far as that's concerned. Sam Darnold, let's give him some credit. Last week against San Francisco, clean football. That is the starting point for a victory in this game for Seattle. Clean football. No mistakes from Sam Darnold. Don't be a hero like C.J. Stroud last week and think you're going to carry this team to victory. Don't do that shit, because it got C.J. Stroud in trouble with an elite defense playing behind him. Take what the defense gives you. Put the ball in secure areas where your guy can get it. Don't, those 50-50 balls. Stay away from that nonsense. Just make sure you make even if you have to check it down on 3rd and 8 and it gets 4 yards and you have to punt, take it. You have one of the great defenses in the NFL. You cannot sewer this game for your teammates with dumbass decision-making, bad throws, and just trying to be too aggressive. Can't. You have to play to the situation, right, Phil? You have to play to the personnel that's on your football team. And you've got a defense that's good enough to win games by themselves, much like Houston did. But C.J. Stroud said, forget about it. I'll try to do a little bit too much, even though I have a great defense. Sam Darnold cannot get into that line of thinking here. Take what the defense gives you and play mistake-free football. But here's the problem. He has not played mistake-free football this year against the LA Rams. He enters this game 2 touchdowns, 6 interceptions in the 2 games against the LA Rams. So ball security and taking care of the football, he's going to have to clean that up in a significant way here in this game. And again, at this stage of the season, quarterback pressure and your ability to affect the quarterback is paramount. And Sam Darnold, when he's not under pressure, the numbers are outstanding. He's got a almost 75% completion rate, Philip, when he's not under pressure this season. And he's been great in that situation. And he's able to attack vertically. His yards per pass numbers go up. His completion rate goes up. His touchdown to interception ratio improves when he's not under pressure. Those are his numbers this season, not under pressure. They're great when he's got a clean pocket. But when he is under pressure, his completion rate is barely above 50% in plays where he's been under pressure. And the interception numbers just skyrocket for Sam Darnold. And what concerns me about Sam here is the Rams have Jared Verse, who can get that pressure. And last year, Sam Darnold faced this very same LA Rams team in the NFC wildcard game as a member of the Minnesota Vikings. And guess what happened in that game? The Rams got all kinds of pressure. And they flummoxed Darnold. They sacked him a bunch of times. He made some mistakes, made interceptions, and obviously it was a runaway for the LA Rams in that game against Minnesota. I am petrified he falls into that same trap here in this game, because he's facing the very similar defense that's going to throw a lot of the same shit that they did at Sam Darnold last year in that game against Minnesota. Not to mention this year in the 2 regular season meetings, the dude's got 6 interceptions in the 2 games against the LA Rams. This is such a hard game for me to call, Philip. I'm not going to lie to you or anyone watching or listening here in this game. But I look at the 2 meetings, and I look at the fact that the Rams won the first game. The Rams had a 30-14 lead in the second meeting. And while we're going to give Seattle all kinds of credit, you beat the Rams, great job. The Rams were in control of that game. And I think it was a Rashid Shaheed return touchdown later in that. And look, we saw it last week on the opening kickoff. He can break one of those. And so your special teams better be on point. Your kick coverage better be on point here if you're the Rams. And it certainly wasn't in that game either, because he got a return touchdown on the Thursday night game, which spurred the Seahawks comeback and got them going a bit in the fourth quarter. And that comeback was great. for Seattle, but the Rams were in control for 3 quarters. And when you balance out the 2 regular season games going into this one, the Rams won the first one. Darnold was a mess in it. And then the second one, they were in control until all of a sudden Rashid Shaheed returns a kick for a touchdown, and the momentum flipped to Seattle, and they rode that wave, and they ramped up the defense. They rattled Stafford, and then maybe the Rams defense got tired, who knows? And then Seattle was able to come back in that one. When you balance out those 2 games, my first thought all week was, I can't bet against Seattle at home with this defense here. The more I think about it, and that tells you how I'm going back and forth on this game. Certainly if this hits 3, I might be a buyer in the Rams. If I can ever see a +3 in this game before kickoff, I think I'd be a buyer in the LA Rams. But I just think when you look at it, this comes down to Darnold. And we've seen body of work against the Rams with 6 interceptions in 2 games this year and a blowout loss in the playoffs last year when he was with Minnesota in the wild card round against this Rams team. And I just can't, even though I love their defense, and it's good enough to win this game by itself. It is the Seattle defense. I can't bring myself to take Seattle and lay 2.5 with those Darnold concerns in 3 times we've seen him operate against the Rams the last 2 seasons. It's a tough game. I will give the mildest of leans right here to the Rams at +2.5 or better. It's a tough game, though. I will be the first to admit that. And for the total, I love my overs, but I've got a sneaking suspicion after 38-37 in the most recent meeting, these 2 teams are going to dial it in defensively a little bit more this time around. And I'm kind of leaning under here with this total with Rams and Seahawks. 47.5 is pretty high. Let's not forget, too, that's not a vintage Bears defense, and the Rams had their problems. After that opening touchdown they went, 2 quarters plus before they finally got things going again, the Rams on offense. And like I said, the amount of pressure they got on Stafford, Chicago, which is bottom of the league in pressure this year, pressure rate. And now you're going to have to block against Seattle. If Chicago's getting that kind of pressure on Stafford, what the hell can Seattle do to get after Stafford here? That concerns me about the Rams, and that's why I kind of think maybe this could play a little bit to the under in this NFC Championship game. But Phil, I know I certainly gave you a lot to chew on here when it comes to this game, but it should be a great game. I think we can definitely all agree on that. NFC Championship, Phil, what do you think? Rams, Seahawks.
Well, hey, you definitely hit on exactly what I was going to make my main point of this game here and how I think it's going to go, and that's the fact that this Seahawks pass rush is looking really good, and the Rams, how they performed, how they protected Stafford against the Bears was very concerning. And so, with that being said, and I'm just sitting here thinking about Seattle, Lumen Field, the 12th man, it's going to be difficult. NFC Championship game, it's going to be difficult to communicate and get the snap counts right and let the offensive line get off the ball quickly enough to the pass block, pass set, and all that stuff. So with that being said, because I'm sitting here thinking all this through, I mean, you said it too. I don't think the Rams are going to be able to, easily just run the ball on the Seahawks defense either. And so with that being said, I think the Rams are going to have an advantage in the pass rush here on this, just based off of crowd noise and just based off of what we've been seeing lately with the protection of Stafford. I don't think they're going to be running the ball, but that's not to say that Stafford isn't the type of player. He's going to be the NFL MVP. He's the type of guy that can take over a game and make those crazy ass throws. So, again, I'm going to go. I'm going to be, I'll do my slight lean against you and go, and because I'm thinking here, Seahawks, it's their time. And I think Sam Darnold, offensively, I think they're gonna really try to make sure that they don't put too much on his plate. Play that good defense. It's going to be NFL, the NFC Championship. It's playoff football time. The weather's going to be great, so it's not, it's like you said.
One thing I'll throw out
to you,
and then you can continue, is that the situationals are pretty good here for Seattle. Rams had to
right.
go down to Carolina, up to Chicago in the cold last week, and now out to Seattle, Pacific Northwest, third road game in 3 weeks, and Seattle definitely from a freshness standpoint. They have
and Sunday versus Saturday too, Sunday night. So, and what is this game on Sunday, right? They're both
Sunday night. Yeah.
Sunday night. Yeah. So, Stafford's going to be the best player on that field on Sunday night.
Yeah.
But I think that the Seahawks offensively are going to be able to do enough to put points on the board. And then I think defensively, they're going to be able to do enough to limit the big plays and whatnot. And I agree with you. I think because of what I'm saying here with that, in terms of the pass rush, stopping the run, kind of, trying to, limit the big plays from the Rams, I agree with you. I think this is going to go to an under, because I also don't think that, Darnold's going to go out there and throw for 4 or 5 touchdowns either. So with that being said, I think the Seahawks are just going to kind of do what they've been doing all year, rely on a nice balanced offense, a good mixture of run and pass. I think Smith and Jigma is going to, get his touches, of course. And I'm betting on the fact that the Seattle defense is going to be able to do enough to disrupt the Rams, and that's why I'm leaning under here. In terms of -2.5, I'd probably feel better with just Seattle Seahawks money line. I don't know if 2.5 does enough for you. In something like this, because I could see this being a one.
Just take the money line if you like Seattle. That is what I would recommend to everybody watching and listening. Like, if you like Seattle, don't put yourself in a spot where they win by 1 or 2 and you laid the 2.5. You're pissed off and it ruins your day. Just don't do that.
But hey, man, I completely agree with you. I think that this is probably the Super Bowl, and I think that this has got to be the toughest game that we're calling of the whole year, I would say. So this could go either way, but what I'm picturing in my head is going to be more of the defensive battle, limit, and I don't want to say, defenses are going to play perfect, but do I think they're going to get 47.5? No, because if I think the Seahawks are going to win, I think they're going to win because they're going to be able to limit Stafford and that Rams offense.
No doubt. And that's good. And then, look, there's great arguments to be made for the Seattle Seahawks. There's no question about that. And I said, I stand by it. Even as someone that's leaning Rams +2.5, and at +3, I'm like, it's a lean right now. If I can find a 3 at a decent price, that probably gets the Rams into the territory of it becoming a bet for me. But like I said, Seattle can win this game alone with their defense. They are. That is how good their defense is. Like, if they get after Stafford, force him into turnovers, and he's had a few. You saw the Carolina loss in the regular season. He didn't play a great game there, and he made mistakes. Seattle can force them into that. The flip side, though, is Sam Darnold's been struggling against the Rams. Now we have 3 games against the Rams last year, this year combined, where he struggled. He's turned the ball over. And again, the one thing he will face in this game is a much better pass rush from Jared Verse and company, because the one thing about San Francisco, and especially after all the injuries they suffered on the defensive side of the football field, they just don't have a great pass rush at all. It is very difficult, and it was very difficult most of the season for the 49ers to get pressure on the quarterback. He's going to face a little bit more, to put it mildly, in this game, Sam Darnold against the LA Rams. But you mentioned it. It's a great game. You can make good cases for both teams, and like I said, looking forward to seeing it play out here on Sunday. Great stuff, as always, with our guest, Philip Nelson. We'll have him back in 2 weeks. We're going to do a ton of Super Bowl shows the week before the Super Bowl. We got tons of guests. I'm basically, Philip, recording like 3 or 4 or even 5 different Football Frenzy shows leading up to the Super Bowl with different guests. So I'm going to be sick of fucking talking about that game by the end of the week, by the time Super Bowl Sunday rolls around. But we're going to have Philip as one of the guests. We're going to have probably Trevor and Davis back on. We got a couple other guests lined up for the week of the Super Bowl. So we'll get a ton of Super Bowl shows going for you here on Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy in a couple of weeks. Hit the like button if you haven't done so already. Let's give everybody what they've wanted. And that's the best bet for NFL Conference Championship Sunday. As always, we'll start with Philip Nelson. What do you got for best bet for Sunday?
You know what? I really like the way that this Patriots offense has been gelling a little bit. I'm not buying the hype on the Broncos defense right now. We saw, last weekend what the Bills were able to do and what good teams have been able to do against this Broncos defense. So with that being said, I really like this Patriots team total over of 23.5. I think that the Patriots are going to win that game. Wasn't really sure about, the 5-point spread. But I do think that if my personal belief is that the Patriots are going to win, they're going to score more than 23.5 to do that, because I do think the Broncos will put up some points as well. So I'm going to go with 23.5 for the Patriots.
New England Patriots team total over 23.5, which is widely available for Philip Nelson with his best bet here for NFL Conference Championship Sunday. My best bet, I'm sticking with the same game, but I'm going to go with the full game total. It's 42. I think it gets over that total. I do not think highly of the Denver defense against any sort of capable offense, and I think Drake May and the Patriots will have success moving the football. But don't be surprised if Jarrett Stidham and the Broncos offense perform at least a little bit better than some people think. Remember, he's been in this system for both years under Sean Payton. He'll know the playbook. He was now again, it was the preseason, but boy, he was really good in the preseason. Now this is a different animal for Jarrett Stidham, but I think they can do enough, and plus there's the element of the unknown that you have to factor in. New England defense, hasn't seen a lot. Nobody's seen a lot of Jarrett Stidham with this Broncos offense in a meaningful game. So maybe the element of the unknown and the surprise maybe allows Denver to take advantage of certain situations there against that New England defense. So we'll go with New England, Denver over 42 in the AFC Championship game for my best bet for Conference Championship Sunday. Phil, always a blast doing the shows with you. Anything you want to add before we wrap this thing up?
Always a blast, brother. Gonna be two interesting games there. Obviously, this Rams and Seahawks game is gonna kind of feel like a Super Bowl there in itself, but interested in seeing how Jarrett Stidham, rises up to the occasion. So, I think that he's capable, and plus on top of it, we forgot to mention he's going against his own team. So, so there might be a little bit of bad blood there. So, excited for both these games. Y'all enjoy, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.
No doubt. We'll reconvene in a couple weeks to get you ready for the Super Bowl. For Philip Nelson, I'm Ian Cameron. Enjoy NFL Conference Championship Sunday, and good luck with all your wagers. And we'll see you in a couple weeks for the Super Bowl preview edition of Ian Cameron's Football Frenzy.